What is up, everybody, and welcome to Real Talks Podcast. We're going to break down what it takes to live life on your terms through entrepreneurship, specifically real estate investing. So we're going to hit it hard, the good, the bad, and the real, because that climb, as any entrepreneur knows, is never smooth. My name is Mike Singletary. I'm your host. So let's get real. What's up, everybody? Another episode of Real Talks. Today, we got a great treat for you. I'm excited about this guest because he reminds me a lot of not just myself, but just the beginning stages, right? I met him recently, and I could just tell that, he was going to go very far in this industry. And, when we're in this really weird time right now, it's, Q4 of 2023, where there's a lot of investors getting out of the business. And this guy is running into the business. And so there's a lot of opportunity right now. But the biggest issues that we're having right now is that we're having, low inventory, right? And that's why people are having a hard time because, a lot of sellers aren't selling their properties because they're sitting on, historically low interest rates. And now interest rates, especially for rentals, are like 8 and 9%. I haven't checked it today, but that's what it was just last week, right? And so wholesaling is more difficult because your buyer pool has shortened as well. So even though it is more challenging, because there's always challenges at every cycle, before it was easy to sell a contract because everybody was in it. Now it's going to be more difficult to sell a contract, but you should be able to buy it deeper, right? But now it has this weird paradigm of the inventory is low. Just like I said, I hate to repeat myself, but it is because people just are having a hard time giving up their loan because where are they going to go, And so to see a young guy at that, just come running into the industry while everybody's running out is awesome. And so I want to introduce our guest, Katie Garza. How you doing, bud?
What's going on? Doing well, man. Can you hear me good? Everything good?
I can hear you good. So just a proper bio of you. Okay. So you just started real estate in February 22, right? Coming from the mortgage business, you had a partnership, which you just dissolved. So you're already going through some hurdles in this business. Luckily, you figured that out pretty quickly. And within this last quarter, you were at 110 in revenue. And you've already had multiple exits as far as you exited multiple, you flip land, Airbnb and arbitrage, insurance, housing. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure you'll tell me. And I'm looking forward to hearing it. And of course, flipping houses. Does that sound about right?
That's about right. Yeah, that's spot on.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, man, tell me about your story. Where you came from? Where are you right now? And where is your dreams? Where do you hope to be?
I was born in Houston, but I was raised in Mexico. And so, my parents took me when I was very young. I didn't actually grow up in the States. I grew up in Monterrey in Mexico, in a family business. So business has always been part of my life, since I was a toddler. And, so that's kind of where we started. Our business, unfortunately, didn't do so hot around the 2008 crash. We did some international trading and stuff, but it just didn't go well. So business didn't do well. And then in 2010, my dad just unexpectedly, tragically passed. And it was a very, very tough time for our family. And, we didn't have any money. We just had a business that we needed to sell. And in Mexico, and if somebody's listening to this and they have a business in Mexico or inherited property in Mexico, they'll know what I'm talking about. It takes a long, long time for you to do anything. Right. So I think it took like 6-7 years for us to finally liquidate our assets and actually get money. So yeah, my mom moved us to Houston, where we basically started from nothing. We lived with my uncle and aunt. We shared beds, slept on the floor. Looking back, it's crazy. It's like a different lifetime,
Yeah, but it's the American dream, man. To a certain degree, right? You came here with nothing, living in shared space with family and stuff like that. And obviously, with hard work and diligence, you're making something out of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, the way that it all started, it reached that poor dad, in a dream, right? Like we knew that our current lifestyle wasn't gonna work out for us. At the time, I think I was serving tables when I met my fiance Camille, and we both kind of went on this journey together. I was already in San Antonio at this time, and it got a W-2 job. I was there for 3 years. I was like, this is not cutting it. Like, so what do we got to do? So started Bigger Pockets podcast, reading, and so just started really getting into that. Went to some events, stuff like that. But yeah, like you said, I got into mortgage, did that for 3 years as well. I thought I was going to learn all about how to underwrite deals and, how to like be an investor, but I didn't. I learned about conventional loans and FHA.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it
and,
still applies a little bit, right? I mean, not a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit translates. Like it's good knowledge, like primarily transactional. The transactional piece that's solid. And yeah, so now, like you said, a year and a half full time, did a little bit of everything. Was in a partnership. We're amicably split. We're still really good friends. And now we're in this journey in our own business where we're doing really well. But I really want to get to 7 figures this coming year. And I think you hit it spot on. Like gross, correct?
Gross?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you hit it spot on. Like, I'm seeing a lot of opportunity in the market because there's not a ton of competition. So you are able to buy deeper. And, the way that I found a little bit of success is just selling to hedge funds. A lot of people are like, oh, they're gone. Well, I mean, yeah, they're not buying at 85%, but, maybe they're buying at 72%, 75%, right? So you can still, my average wholesale at the moment is between 50 to 20 per deal. So it's still possible. You just got to work a little harder and smarter right now.
Okay. So how many hedge funds are you working with? Just a couple or one or?
I have 3 that I primarily operate with.
Okay. And did you have a relationship with them previously or did you just find them recently?
Yeah, I found them recently. After I went on my own, I decided to go all inbound because I didn't want to have to wait for, leads to come in and everything. So I was like, how can I get this like going stat? So I use paper lead services. And how did I come across them? I was dispoing a deal on Facebook, my very first one on my own. And this guy reached out to me and he was like, oh, hey, I'm from this, company, whatever. We buy 20, 30 homes. I was like, whoa, a hedge fund guy just found me on Facebook. I'm like, that's awesome. And so we built a really good relationship. We had coffee since, and then it kind of, the light bulb, I closed, I think I made 25 on my first deal with him, and the light bulb went off. And I was like, whoa, I didn't get any offers on my Facebook deal that were serious from like other investors. And then this hedge fund just found me and made, I'm like, okay, so they're still buying. So how can I cater to them? Right? Like how can I find the product that they really want? And that's kind of where I've been focusing on, is that I know, hey, this is a really good property. I could probably make really good money on this, and this one may not. And I try to pick and choose the winners.
There's so many things of what you just said that just kind of resonates and it's just super awesome. So I come from an immigrant family as well. So I completely understand, like we moved here many, many decades ago. So I'm much older than you. We came here and we had nothing, like literally nothing, my whole family. And so I'm half Asian, I have Vietnamese. And so seeing them come, I was just a kid, so I didn't understand the struggle, right? But I saw it come with zero, with nothing. And every one of them now have, their kids are professionals and stuff like that, that immigrant mentality, that hustle that people that in the States kind of take for granted. Right.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And they think they got it so bad here. Right. I mean, even the floor here is, well off compared.
Oh, we're going there. I like it. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Like
here's the fact. That's your story. I mean, you're coming in and you saw your parents do this, and you're a part of you is always trying to improve. So you're like, hey, listen, this loan gig is really not for me. So I'm going to step out on my own. And even then, what I really love, and I've always believed in this, is that action creates opportunity, right? So you're putting stuff on Facebook Marketplace or whatever the case is, and you're just getting out there doing things you should do, and opportunity comes your way, and you're taking advantage of it right now.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So when you're dealing with the hedge funds, because I know I've dealt with hedge funds in the past, not recently. So now after this, I'm going to probably start, telling our dispo to start, working a little more. Their buy box has always been pretty rigid, right? This is the buy box. Like anything
Yes.
outside of that, don't even come and talk to me. Is that the same experience you're having right now?
Um, yes, with two, but then I have the one that literally buys like anything that's 1950s and higher, which is like almost unheard of in the hedge
Oh,
fund realm. Um, they do buy in different states and everything like that. So happy to make an intro if you want one.
love it, man.
But they have been kind of like my catch-all, where I'm primarily like I'm trying to target the other two, but they're like 1985 plus, right? Like the very specific stuff, certain zip codes. But these other guys have been my catch-all, and they're not the best offers, but man, they have been like solid. Every time that they walk a house and they give me an offer, it's a done deal. I closed with them. We saved somebody from a foreclosure. We contracted. They had already title open. We contracted within 24 hours. They had a guy at the house. They gave me an offer. It was assigned, and we closed like 4 or 5 days after that. So
Oh,
like it moves super quick, and I mean I cannot say good enough things about them.
that's fantastic because sometimes hedge funds don't follow through. I mean,
Yeah, it's happened to
uh,
me too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the fact that you found somebody, even though you're willing to take a little bit of a cut for certainty, you're still monetizing that lead, and then feeding the back end probably to the marketing machine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I had another hedge fund that I still work with, but I learned my lesson. It's like I have them do their final inspections and everything, give me a final offer before I think that it's a done deal. So I always make sure they walk the home now. But yeah, I mean, 2 days before closing, they did their final walkthrough and they try to drop like 10 or 15K. So it was not a great situation. I was able to figure it out and find somebody else, but it definitely put me in a bind, and that kind of sucked. So
Yeah.
that's the only warning I would definitely say is just make sure they do their due diligence. Even though they're going to give you an offer, it's not a done deal until they do their due diligence and it's signed. Right.
Okay. So it's the final walkthrough, right? So how many walkthroughs they typically have? Just one, and it's good to go.
Um. Yeah. One. Yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying is that part of your process now with them is that we are not, taking this to the bank, or I mean, obviously you don't do that until you close anyways, but you're not, it's not a
Correct.
for sure deal until they do that walkthrough.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And even
Okay.
if they send me an email and say, "Oh, hey, our offer's going to be, I don't know, 200K," I'm like, "All right, that's cool. Can you go ahead and walk the home?" And then I just want to make sure that you're solid on that after the walk. And they do. And then they send me the assignment agreement. And honestly, at this point, until it's signed, I don't really celebrate.
Oh, I don't. I don't know if you're there yet. You'll get to the point where you don't celebrate even the sales.
Oh, yeah. No, I already do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a relief than a celebration. I remember at the beginning
Yeah.
where, you get a sale, you're so excited, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're so super excited because you're like proof of concept. This works.
I did
And
it.
get
Yeah.
yeah.
It
My,
works. Yeah.
my first check was pathetic. I think it was like $1,000. I mean, I got totally ripped off, right? But I was so excited about it. My second one was like 10, but just be able to get that 10,000, 15, 20, $30,000 checks. It's life changing, when you're not
Yeah.
used to that. What happens though is once you start doing more deals, the complexity of the deal starts kind of coming into play, and getting things
Yes.
across the finish line becomes like, oh my God, laborious. And you're just like, you're relieved, like, okay, thank God that's over, and you're on to the next deal. So have you gotten there yet in your career, or?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm growing my team, I'm expanding my marketing channels, I'm going through a little bit, making sure I have I use like the profit first, like different bank accounts, stuff like that. So, yeah, so like a 15K doesn't hit like it used to before, now it's like, all right, that, pays the bills, pays the marketing. Now I need to get paid. So let me go get another one.
Oh,
So,
that's fantastic, man. Let me ask you something, man. What does your team
yeah.
look like?
So at the moment, it's just myself and my admin, and I'm actively hiring a lead manager.
Okay.
Um, when I was with my previous business partner, we did manage a team of 8, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. So we had like 2 lead managers, 1 acquisition, and texters, cold callers. So we had like
Yeah.
but now I'm trying to I've honestly seen it now as a blessing in disguise that we decided to part. I know he's happier. I am too, which is awesome. But I'm like, okay, it give me a moment to pause and to think like, what do I actually want to build? And then why do I want to build that? Right. Is it like, what is this I mean, I'm huge on like building your business to fit your life and not your life to fit your business, because I feel like that's where a lot of people go wrong and just end up getting burnt out, is because you're just spinning your wheels and you're not advancing in the other areas of your life that matter. You know, your relationships, spirituality, um, adventure, right? Like growth. That's, I had a moment to pause. And so I'm going to be actually running it very, very lean, as lean as I can.
Hey, keep it small, keep it all, man. So, I mean, I've gone through several iterations, and you will too, right? Where you'll
Yes.
grow, and you'll add people, and then you'll contract, and then you have to find that right mix. And it's just like everybody else says, it's always about the people that are around you. You know, like right now, we have a little bit of a bigger team than I probably would like, but I do have the core people that I know that if the hits the fan, I got this core. We can do some damage with it, and you'll assemble that over time, So that's awesome, man. Keep it small, keep it all. Figure out, another lesson that I heard from you was you pivot really, really quickly when you know something isn't working, like with your partner. So what type of maybe advice that you would have for somebody that is in a partnership, or maybe going into a partnership, you know what I mean? That how could they circumvent that situation that you had to go through?
Well, I want to start with the second question first, actually, which is, what would I say to somebody that's thinking about getting into a partnership? And I would ask why, right? Why do you want to be in a partnership, right? And there's some valid reasons, and I don't ever discourage people from getting into partnerships, but I think what I've learned now is that you need to really define each other's roles, vision, and then something that I think for us, something we didn't talk much about was timeline, right? Like, how quickly are we trying to hit our goals? Because, I think timeline will create what I like to call, everybody, is a sense of urgency, right? We all have a different type of sense of urgency depending on our different life circumstances, financial circumstances. And I think that, I think that's very important to talk about, but also the why, right? Like, is it because you're scared? Is it because you think you can't do it on your own? Is it because being with somebody else give you that, safety, that you think you need? And again, for some people that might be a valid, but I think I've had a lot of realizations, as I've gone through this journey on my own now, that at the time, I think that's what God wanted me to be, and it served this purpose. But I think now it's just like, looking to grow and make better decisions with that experience now.
Let me ask you, so what was your timeline in comparison to his?
So I think my timeline was just simply a little more intense. Like, I was willing to do, like late night, 7 days a week, whatever it took. But we also have to respect in a partnership each other's roles, right? And each other's positions. And so, which we did both very well. And I think at times it was, you start feeling the sense that's like, well, I'm going this direction, and maybe you're not going as fast as I would want you to. And then it doesn't mean that, the other person's necessarily doing a bad thing, or maybe not going as best as they can. Yeah. It's just everybody has their own different, ways of working and timelines and things like that. So I think that was one of the things. Yeah.
Yes, as excellent advice. I mean, everybody needs to be rowing in the same direction, right? So, and I've had that situation before, Kenny, as well, where I've gone into a partnership. Luckily, it never really went very far, but it was almost the same thing where, the sense of urgency, the level of urgency was different. And what it leads to is, frustration, right? I mean, they're frustrated with you, you're frustrated with them. And luckily, there's an amicable split. Hopefully that was the case for you. It definitely.
Yeah, no, it is the case. We're still really good friends. I mean, he's in my same market. So,
we're San Antonio. I'm in your market, man.
No. So I'm in Dallas now.
Oh, okay. You're in Dallas? Well, I'm in that market too.
There you go. Yeah, well, we share markets.
There you go. Well, I mean, we're in all of Texas, but let me ask you this, man. What do you specifically focus on in Dallas right now?
Specifically wholesaling. I did a little bit of flipping, but I've done couple of novations. I have one that's sitting on the market. And what I realized about novations, which I actually, now I'm building my own thought about the matter. Like you see, obviously, a lot of people talk about novations is a way, and build another way of making income. And I agree with it, but you are subject to the market, right? Like if there's no buyers, it doesn't matter, right? That you did a novation deal. You can't sell it. If you can't sell it, you can't get paid. And so I'm focusing primarily in cash deals right now because those are the ones that I know I can move quick. And then I need novations or subject to or other creative stuff kind of secondary if the cash doesn't work. But I'm trying to primarily focus in cash wholesales.
Okay. And on your dispo side, are you primarily going with the hedge funds, or you're doing other? Are you also going to cash buyers lists and stuff like that?
So I do use a company called Town Square to help me do kind of like a blast, if you will, so that I can expand my reach. But man, the reality is, at the end of the day, because it's just me and my assistant. Yeah. It's been so convenient to just have to deal with one guy as far as the hedge fund goes, and those are my go-tos, to be honest.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, truthfully, I mean, if it was working for you right now, I would advise to diversify in case those guys just kind of shut down for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Right. But because, a lot of people, fell on that fate, unfortunately. So I get it, but we did that. I remember every time we enter a market, if New Western was in that market, we would piggyback on them for a while.
Oh yeah, that too.
We figured it out, but so yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about your marketing. I know you said that you're doing all inbound. So is it you're buying leads, or are you running PPC ads or SEO, or what's that look like for you?
So specifically, I'm doing paper leads. So companies like, Need to Sell My House Fast is somebody that I use. I also use HomeLight, and I do a little bit of direct mail, and I'm currently trying to do a little bit more targeted marketing, like maybe door knocking or driving for dollars, or something like it's a little bit more specific, because I think that's where my real opportunity is. And honestly, not only for me, for you, and for anybody else that's in our industry. I think I've recently learned, and it came from a really good friend, Justice, right? I was talking to him about this, and he was like, dude, I think you might just have a marketing issue. Like maybe you just need to be a little more specific with your marketing, but like, who is your target audience? And so that's kind of what really got my thoughts of like, well, maybe I should door knock, or maybe I should, when I use my direct mail, like specifically who am I mailing? Not just like a blanket absentee owner, 70% equity, right? Like just more specific than that.
Yeah, it gets really expensive, obviously, right? So we did that also at one time, and direct mail always works. It's just the cost per contract is really, really high. You have to have the capital to maintain it, because it's a 6-month commitment before you really see the return on it, right? Here's something that we do. It really cuts down on their cost per lead, cost per contract, and everything. So we do like a sequence marketing where we pull the list of our avatar, what we want, the area we want. We'll cold call them first. If anything that we can't get a hold of, that we can't get the right person contact, then we mail those pieces, right? And so it can greatly. So, but a lot of people always sit there and says cold calling does work, but it works. It works very well. It's just that it's a little bit laborious, and it sounds like you've already kind of done that. Did you have an experience with that already?
I did, yes. We had it in house, which maybe that's where we went wrong. I mean, at some point, I think we outsourced it at some point. That was
you got to partners. That outsourcing doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's kind of what the issue was. But I mean, it's a different dynamic, right? With the sales team, it's a volume play, and for me particularly, for what I'm trying to build, inbound has been my absolute go-to, and I love it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. But
let me ask you this. So how much are your leads typical on average would cost? Like you're purchasing, what would that
So gross lead, I would say probably $175 to $200. And gross lead, I define it just as any lead that we paid for, right? And then net lead, I would say I'm closer to maybe 250 to 300. And that is somebody that is interested in selling and that they're able to actually sell.
Okay.
So on average, that's kind of what I'm seeing. I'm exploring, for example, I use HomeLight and you pay them after you close, which is nice. But
You pay
there's
them a percentage, or I mean,
a
I've never used
percentage.
it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So you typically pay them a percentage of your purchase price. So
Got
whatever
it.
your purchase price was, you get a cut, which is good and bad in the sense that, I mean, it's hefty. The fee is hefty, right? So you don't get a lot of the bigger deals that way, but it still keeps some leads in the system and, keeps a little bit of revenue going as well.
I mean, when you're beginning, I think it's great because you're trying to keep that overhead
Yeah.
at a minimum, right? You're trying to
Yep.
obviously create profit because there's a lot of people with big teams, with big operations that aren't profitable. So the real key is not the
Yeah.
top line, is that bottom line, right? That seems like what
True.
you're focused on.
100%. I mean, I honestly, that's the one thing that I've talked to people in our mastermind too, right? Like they come and ask me like, well, if I'm starting out, like, what would you, recommend? I'm like, dude, focus on your bottom line. At the end of the day, nobody cares if you have a team of 8 people, if that guy's taking home 15 and you're taking home 20 and it's only you and an admin, you're winning,
Yeah.
right? Like, like it's obviously it's a different lifestyle. Make sure you're working towards building what you want, but it really is at the end of the day about your take home, right?
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome, man. So let me ask you this. So you're spending was it 175? Was it 175 for the gross one?
yeah,
Okay,
correct.
but 175. How many gross leads that your purchase leads to a contract?
Oh, that's a good question. For gross leads to contract, it's about, so I'll give it to you the other way. So for every 10 net leads, I get a contract on average. So you could say 30. For every 30 gross leads, I get 10 net leads. So yeah, so 30 gross leads per contract.
But the system is you don't really know the net leads until you buy it, right? So everything's a gross lead at the beginning,
Correct.
and then you work it through your funnel.
Yep.
So how talk to us about what that process looks like? Because I want to talk to the person out there that is new, that that thinks that they can't pull it off,
Sure.
and so somebody like you is an inspiration to them. You know what I mean? And I remember when I first started, I remember sitting in the areas and stuff like that. It wasn't that long ago. It was like 10 years ago, right? I still remember it, where it was
Yeah.
like, it felt so much bigger than I was able to bite off. And, you're
Yeah.
doing it. You're there right now. You're in it for a year. You're already at 6 figures in a quarter, right?
Yep.
So let's talk to that person and like break it down really easy for them about how, you're purchasing leads. It comes into your system.
Yes.
What's next?
Yeah. So the way that it works is you purchase a lead, it comes into your system, you call them. And I actually, what I do, so for example, Need to Sell My House Fast has a really cool refund policy that if it's not the right phone number, you get a refund for that lead. If they don't want to sell, you get a refund for that lead, and a couple other metrics, right? So a lot of the sales trainings will teach you to push for the no, right? To try to switch the conversation so that they're selling you rather than you selling them on your services. And if I found out it works really good with these leads because I always push them like, oh, well, man, Mike, it sounds like you're not really interested in selling. Does that sound about right? Yeah, no, I changed my mind. I really don't want to sell. Bam, I got a credit on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I record all of my calls. So record all of your calls. And I always send that to, my refund request. I include the call recording, all of your text messages recorded, all of your calls recorded. And I've even had leads, like they say that I think it's submit them no more than 3 or 5 days after they come in. But I've had leads refunded 2 weeks after, even a month after, because I could never get in touch with them. And finally that I did is somebody that's speaking Spanish and they're like, hey dude, I don't know who you are. Stop calling me. Like I'm not the right person. And so far they've been great about that. Like just, honoring their commitment to their client and refunding if it's not a legit lead. So staying on top of your leads when you're doing inbound is huge because, you have to be very aggressive.
100%. You have to be super aggressive. You have to answer their phone. That's the biggest mistake most people make.
Yep.
It's really ridiculous that you're paying for leads. You don't answer the phone.
Texting will not close your deal, guys. Maybe one in 15, maybe 1 in 20. I mean, it's happened, right? Where you just text with somebody because they don't like to be on the phone.
Yeah.
But man, you got to talk to people and be human. Like just be honest and open.
Dude, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, real estate investing is a contact sport, right? Contacts
That's
lead to
100%.
contracts. And so if
Ah, I
you
love that.
are
Yeah.
willing to talk to people and have just a conversation, you're not going to do well here, right? You're going to have to piggyback and find somebody that does that and then go into partnership, or you really don't have to go in partnership, just hire him if you can. But yeah, contacts leads to contracts, and you have to talk to people all day. So what we require for our team is that they got to have at least 3 hours of conversation a day. Like our
Wow.
AMs, our lead managers, like they got to talk 3 hours. Like at first we made a mistake. It's like, hey, you got to have this kind of call volume, but it's not
Yes.
the call volume that is important. It's like you actually having a conversation with somebody.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
gold. Yeah.
that's awesome, man. So let me ask you this. What is your biggest challenge right now in your business?
My biggest challenge in the business is more leads. I, you know, I love to talk to people. Every time that I get in front of a seller, my closing ratio is very good. I just need more leads. And what I'm trying to figure out is how I can acquire more leads without spending a fortune. Right. And so that's why I'm trying to explore things like maybe I can hire a door knocker on a full commission. Right. Or something I'm exploring is like starting a RIA or, some sort of educational platform like free, but just where I can pour into people, and in return, maybe they bring you a deal or two, right? So referrals kind of thing. So yeah, that's my challenge at the moment. It's just more leads without necessarily having to spend, an extra 4 or 5K on a new marketing channel.
Well, I mean, if with your dispo process right now and your ability to dispo properties pretty easily, why don't you like find JV opportunities and you be the dispo?
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I just don't. So my assistant, she left on maternity leave. She'll be back in 2 weeks. But that was her. That was on her plate. Yeah, that was on her plate of like, hey, go build relationships. Go. Find JV opportunities. Yeah. That's definitely the goal.
I would go into the Dallas, networks and stuff like that. I would go to every RIA. I would go to the Facebook groups and go, listen, I got solid buyers. I mean, this is our buy box. You know what I mean? Here's what I'm going to take out of it. Stuff like that. If you have any issues on moving your properties, give us a shot at it. So, I mean, you're not doing that right now. That would be the first thing I would do and start establish that relationship where
I will now. I will now, I promise.
Yeah. Awesome. Sure. Awesome. Is there anything that I could do to help you, or is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't touched upon?
Oh man, I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about your business background and your story of going through real estate. So I know you said you were in some partnerships. You did a couple of different marketing channels. So you dismantle your business, you rebuild your business.
Yeah, it's a pretty long story, but I mean, if anybody could if I could do this, anybody could do it, because I came from a totally different industry. I mean, I used to be a hairdresser, for God's sake, before this. Wow. And I'm not saying anything wrong with hairdressers. I'm just saying that because it was so different, right? To go into that and into real estate was such a big pivot. That's why I was at the RIAs, like totally lost and confused. But I think the common denominator with a lot of people, yourself included, and almost every single person that I interview, is that everybody eventually has to take that jump and just believe in yourself that you'll figure it out, right? Yeah. And so you're going through that right now. And truthfully, everybody's going through it, because no matter what level you're in, everybody has a little bit of an imposter syndrome, because you're always trying to climb to something a little beyond yourself, right? And so what I've realized is that as you're going through your journey, that imposter syndrome never really leaves. You just become very, very confident where you are. But then you know that next level, you're always going to have that again. Every single room you step in that's a little bit more, you're going to have that again. So I saw that in your comment earlier that you're a man of faith. I'm a man of faith as well. So it helps me to just, kind of I give myself up to it, right? Where if I create the action, just like we were talking about before, things will come to me. But it is my job, regardless of how strong of a faith you are, and regardless of your belief in God. I have a very strong belief in God, but God does not give me anything without me having to supply the action behind it, right? He doesn't, and that's just how it works. And so what happens as you're going through your journey, you're going to find and you probably already have, is that as you're going and trying to figure out things out, the idea of what you thought you were going or where you thought this, project is going towards, there'll be a deviation because something came in your way. I like to say God brought it to you, an opportunity that you'll find, and you'll just kind of go into this weird path. Like when I started real estate investing 10 years ago, if you would have told me what skip tracing was, I would not have known, right? I mean,
Yes.
data,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, absolutely no idea. Now I'm running a skip tracing company, a data company, all this other stuff, which is, asinine to think about 10 years ago, right? So in your journey 10 years from now, I'm going to follow it. I can't wait to see it because I know I got a feeling that you're going to be one. I knew whenever I first met you, I was like, man, this guy's going to be one of those guys that's going to make it happen. Because in this industry, as you know, a lot of people talk a lot, but you're bright, and more importantly, you're young and you have that tolerance for risk. And so you'll do really, really well, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, man, for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess here's maybe a more specific question.
Sure.
Obviously we all know the market's changing a little bit, right? Like there's not a ton of buyers out there. What are you doing in your business to position your business for success and potentially a downturn, right? Like a serious downturn where, like, how are you positioning yourself at the moment?
I mean, we've been positioning ourselves. So one, you have to eliminate all unnecessary expenses. So you already have that covered, right? Two, you want to make sure you're always looking at your cash flow. Sounds like you have that covered as well. You have to make sure your capital, because this is a very capital intensive business, especially if you do like this burr stuff, which doesn't work anymore, by the way. I mean, you're going to have to, it's not saying it's not good. It's just that forget about the cash flow. You're just buying it for equity, right? Because they're like 100%.
Especially in our market. It's
and you want to make sure that listen, we are not in the real estate business. Okay. We are a marketing and sales business, right? So which one comes first? Is it marketing or is it sales? I'm asking you, which one do you think comes first? Is it marketing or is it sales?
I think it's marketing.
I agree. It's marketing. Most people think it's sales. You know what I mean? And I can see why they say that, because if they don't know what to say when the phone rings, well, you're going to miss out on some opportunities. Sure. But you got to get that phone to ring, right? You got to get that phone to ring. And so I think that'll be your biggest challenge, Kenny, because you're buying the leads, there's nothing wrong with it, which is actually good, but it's hard to scale that way. If I was you, I would probably really understand PPC, since you want a more of an inbound approach. And then once you start building up your capital, then kind of have multiple avenues where you have inbound and outbound campaign working. And that's where your lead flow, I don't have a lead flow problem. I have more leads that I can handle. My problem is acquisitions. What I mean? So you're always going to have a problem. So if I was you just got to figure out what works for you, what energizes you. I'm an aggressive person, so I like outbound. I like being able to chase the leads. I like being able to find the data and target and attack it. That's my personality. Some people love inbound because that's an easier lead. They're calling you, right? So focus on what you feel like you can succeed in the beginning, and then add the other channels in as you master one. So I think that's the key. And I think I made this mistake, and a lot of people make it, where they're just like, hey, that sounds great. Novation. So I want to do this. I want to do that. And they just start all over the place, So, So yeah, man, I don't know if that helps. I hope that helps.
No, it does. For sure.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, how do they find you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, all throughout social media. So Kenny J. Garza, Facebook, Instagram, X, anywhere. Really, I primarily use Instagram, but I'm very active on Facebook just because, we sometimes still dispo deals or look for JV opportunities. So if you message me on either Facebook or Instagram, I'll definitely respond and connect with you as well.
Dude, that's awesome. So if you're in the DFW area and you have deals that you cannot sell, this is the guy you talk to. Okay. So I'll leave his link below, and, start collaborating, because, this opportunity we have this next, God knows how long, 1 or 2 years, it could be generational opportunities, right? So
totally agree.
The guy to JB with is a good dude, and link up with him.
Thanks,
Mike. All right, my friend. Hey, man. So this is I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
No, I'm just saying, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate that. It's been great.
Of course, man. Thank you for being here, man. And so this is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us. Peace out. Till next time. So that's a wrap. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope you received value from this episode. If so, please share this podcast to your brothers and sisters, and also hook up with us on Facebook, IG, and YouTube at Real Talks. That's REIL Talks. Until next time, my friends, keep it cool, keep it real, and peace out.